Good Monday morning of the 22nd week in Ordinary Time. And the readings, I'm going to focus a bit on the first reading. It's the letter to the Corinthians. St. Paul's letter is his first letter to the Corinthians. I'm going to give you a little background as far as I know it, okay? And I must admit I should be looking stuff up, but I didn't. I'm sitting here. Actually, it's a Friday afternoon. I'm going to go visit my friends in a little while. Lily is on the couch snoring. So if you hear some sounds that sound beyond the ordinary, it's Lily. She's snoring. That girl can snore. Good thing she's single. She commandeers the couch. I mean, she owns it. I just have it, I paid for it, but that's about it. She owns it. And she has she kicks off all the pillows. She makes her own nest on it. Yeah, you have to see it. When she gets out there in the evening, she's there all day, but it's reasonably orderly. When I get up in the morning, I make sure she's okay. So it's early. It's around maybe 3:30, 4 o'clock when I get up. So I walk over there and see the pillows strewn all over the floor. She has made her own nest. She throws everything off. She says, "Hey, pal, I own the place." She's been a wonderful companion to me, I have to say. Absolutely independent, but we know each other. We do know each other. I'm so grateful to have little Miss Lily. She's a companion. How else to put it? She's there, very present. Looking right now, thinking, who are you talking to? That's what she's doing. Anyway, let me read you a letter to St. Paul's opening letter. This is chapter 2 of his first letter to the Corinthians. This is a powerful letter. You've got to know the background to see who are the Corinthians. Corinth was one of the most important cities in the Mediterranean world, if not the world. It was a center for commerce, political power, and philosophy. Yes, we think of Athens, but Corinth also was a major center of learning. We think of Athens, and I think Athens is the greatest city in terms of the foundation of Western civilization and culture, philosophical science, etc. It can't beat Athens. It's where Socrates and Plato and Aristotle. But Corinth was a commercial center, and it had not just Greeks present, but people from all over the world, all of the Mediterranean world. And it was a center of commerce, as I said, political power, and wisdom. I don't often think of it, but it is also a center of intense wisdom. Intense meaning the wisdom of the Greeks, the foundations of Western philosophical tradition, and also ultimately the foundation for the sciences, etc., the scientific philosophical mind. And that's who he's talking to. People steeped in wisdom, and by wisdom, they were thinking the wisdom of Plato, essentially. A very profoundly reflective philosophical wisdom. Okay, that's who he's talking to. I would argue some of these people are the smartest people in the world at that time. And Paul's no match for them philosophically. He tried it someplace else and said, they told him, don't call us, we'll call you. So he doesn't attempt it in Corinth. He doesn't attempt to outsmart them. What he attempts to do is preach Christ crucified. See? And the wisdom that he preaches is the wisdom of the cross, an absurdity to the Greeks, see? A scandal to the Jews, and an absurdity, madness, absurdity to the Greeks. But to those who believe, redemption. See? Watch, I'll read it to you. When I came to you, brothers and sisters, so he's talking to the Christian community, the Corinthian Christian community, proclaiming the mystery of God. I did not come with the sublimity of words or of wisdom. What is he talking about? The philosophical world, spoken and learned. See, for I resolved to know nothing while I was with you except Jesus Christ and him crucified. See, he learned a hard lesson. I think it was in Athens where he really fouled up. He's not going to try to outwit the Greeks, either by spoken word or by wisdom. He's going to preach a crucified Christ. I came to you, listen to the way he says this. I came to you in weakness and fear and much trembling. He had his brains knocked out recently, you see. And my message and my proclamation were not with persuasive words of wisdom. Think of Socrates and Plato. Socrates especially. He was wisdom in the flesh. Socrates, as presented to the world by Plato. He was a man who argued. That was the whole thing. He would get in debates with the wise of his time, and he'd take them to the cleaners, so to speak. See? So I'm not going to try that, he says. I came to you in weakness and fear and much trembling. My message and my proclamation were not with persuasive words of wisdom. I ain't that smart. But with a demonstration of spirit and power, so that your faith might rest not on human wisdom, but on the power of God. And the power of God is manifested on the cross. Through death, Christ's death, he redeems the world. He brings life through death, a life now that is eternal. And you see, the Greeks actually believed in the afterlife, far more than the Jews. Just read Plato. Right? In fact, Socrates can't wait to die, because he won't have the burden of his body, and he will be able to think clearly. And philosophically, he'll be able to argue without any constraints, physical constraints of tiredness or emotion. Rather, it's just pure thought. That's Socrates. That's the apology, Plato's apology. So the thought of an eternal life, that's not Jewish, that's Greek. And these guys had 300 years of it under their belt at that time, you see. See, and the power of God for St. Paul is Christ's death on the cross. In his death, he brings life. And in that sense, he fulfills the ambition and desires of the ancient Greeks, who wanted immortality, who wanted the ultimate wisdom. And what Paul is saying to them, it's not in human discourse. It's in the flesh of Christ on the cross. The wisdom of God is a crucified Christ. I love the saying, that, as a Passionist, you hear this one quite a bit. We preach Christ crucified, died, and risen. We preach Christ crucified. I think that's why our missionaries, I don't mean foreign mission, I mean local, when they do parish missions, a revival, they're successful because they preach a crucified Christ. And you see, in preaching a crucified Christ, you're preaching a crucified humanity. Human suffering is not an absurdity, but is a participation in the wisdom of God on the cross. You either believe that or you don't. If you believe it, you're a Christian. If you don't, you're rejecting Christianity. Christianity is rooted in the passion and death of Christ and his resurrection. That's St. Paul, you see. That's St. Paul. The power of God is the death of Christ on the cross. And we share in that. We share in that intimately by our communion with Christ through the sacraments, the life of the church, in our faith, in which we place our wisdom into the wisdom. We place it under and through the wisdom of the cross. We preach Christ crucified, died, and risen. The wisdom of the cross. I think my Passionist bones come on in that. In the monasteries, in our monasteries, you see one symbol after one expression after another of the wisdom of the cross. I think that's why our missionaries, our preachers, our Passionist preachers could touch not the minds but the hearts of the suffering, because they preached the crucified Christ that was sitting in front of them, suffering, the people of God. I love that line with St. Paul at the cross. We preach Christ crucified, died, and risen. The crucified Christ, the wisdom of God in the flesh, the wisdom of God on the cross. That is the truth. I'm grateful for my vocation as a Passionist, more than as a priest. I am so grateful I'm a Passionist, because I was able, through them and through their preaching, to seek and find a wisdom in the sufferings of human life, that I am not scandalized, but redeemed by the cross of Christ. I'm not scandalized by human suffering, but rather I am made wise by it and through it, as we all participate in the suffering of Christ on Good Friday.